So drum roll, please. Woo!
Wait, I got my sticks right here. I can
There you go.
do my own. There we go.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Love seeing you. So we will hand it over to you.
All right. Well, thank you for having me. I love being here. And I just wanted to jump in on what Katie said a minute ago, talking about how much she loved user groups. User groups have played a huge part in my Agile journey. I've been going to them now for, I don't know, probably 7 or 8 years, maybe even a little bit longer. And before that, I felt kind of alone in my journey. And as I stumbled across more and more user groups and met more and more people, and including my lovely friends, Nancy and Marie, it really contributed to, we were talking about earlier, whether or not it's difficult to get the certifications of enterprise coach and team coach. I can say specifically and definitely that attending user groups helped me on my journey to those certifications. No questions at all. So if this is your first time or you've only dabbled, I see a few names and faces that I've seen for years now, and I'm happy to see you. But if you haven't been to a lot of these, look for them. And remember, now that we live in a virtual world, at least for part of our lives, they're available all over the planet now. I attend a couple in England with some friends of mine that live over there. I go to the Austin one on all the time. So dive in and be a part of it and grow your community and contribute to the community. It's a fantastic place to be. So thank you everyone for being here. Enough of that sales pitch for user groups. Before we jump into the presentation, I do have a poll that I would like to throw out to all of you here. And if you could just take the time. Hopefully you can see the poll. It's a pretty simple one. Please self-identify. I am a product owner. I am not a product owner. So hopefully you can answer that and not have to flip a coin. And I don't necessarily mean whether you just have a certification or not. If you are participating at your job in some capacity that's like being a product owner or exactly being a product owner, I mean that. And then of course, if you have a certification and you're not currently a product owner, you could probably identify as a product owner if you'd like. That's up to you. All right. Looks like we have most of the people who participated. Got 22 participants. So I'm just going to end the poll right now. Can you all see the results as I can see them, or do you just have the questions? I don't know.
Not yet. Yeah.
Okay.
Not
You
yet.
have to end it.
All right, then I'm going to end the poll.
Wait a minute, let me end it too, because it's over here too.
All right, and I'm going to share the results.
There you go.
Okay, so you can see we have a pretty even split of the 22 people that participated. 55% or 12 of you say that you're a product owner, and 45% say that you're not a product owner. Okay, so thank you for participating in that. Let me close that down. And I just asked because I just wanted to see what the breakup is, and anticipate how hard the questions are going to be later on in the presentation. Just take care of myself. So now we're going to start with the presentation. I've shared my screen. And make sure I pick the right one because I have got half a dozen windows open here.
I bet you do. Yes. Ooh.
All right.
Leroy Leonard.
Do y'all? I know we have a few people old enough in the room old enough to remember this guy.
He was so pretty.
Leonard Nimoy. Yeah.
Yes, Leonard Nimoy, exactly. And as you can see, I didn't get a picture of him with his pointy ears. So we're not talking about him as Spock here. We're talking about him as Leonard Nimoy, as a host of a certain TV show that I was crazy about when I was a little kid back in the 1970s, called In Search Of. Does anybody remember that? Raise your hands if you remember that.
We had a black and white TV until I went to college, so no.
We had one too, but not. We got a color one before I went to college. I guess we're luckier than you. And this was a favorite episode of mine because when I was a kid, there were two things that I was terrified of, thanks to mass media. One of them was the Bermuda Triangle, even though I didn't even know where it was. And the other one was quicksand, because every single movie and TV show made me think that I was going to fall in quicksand at some point. And I've never even seen it, let alone worried about falling in it. And Bermuda Triangle turns out is nothing but myth anyway. But what's not myth, is the product owner triangle. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight. Before we do that, let me introduce myself a little bit. You can read it there, but Teddy Carroll, enterprise coach, team coach, and Scrum Master at Scrum Alliance. Whole bunch of years working in software and marketing. 10 years as a PO before becoming a coach. So I do have some experience there. I'm not just talking out of my ear or the other parts. I am an author and educator. I haven't written a book yet, but I've written a number of articles. I'm working on that book thing. As soon as I figure out what the title's going to be, I'll start working on it. My coaching focus is on resilience, or actually not both, but individual, team, and organizational resilience. That's the big focus of my coaching, and as well as product excellence and systems relationships. My professional interests are in regenerative leadership, systems thinking, community creation, and I'm a coach, a Scrum Master. Where would I be if I wasn't interested in continuous improvement? And then just for smiles and giggles, I already showed you my drumsticks. My personal interests are drumming, photography, cooking, martial arts, Eastern philosophies, and travel. And I use a lot of Eastern philosophies principles, both in my coaching as well as the things that I write and talk about. So maybe one day I'll give you one of my Tao-inspired talks right here in this very room. So, all right, so that's me. Oh, and that's a picture I took. When I say photography, that's a picture that I took of of a really cool stairwell at the City Museum in St. Louis, Missouri, when I was there visiting family one day. It's a great, great museum if you've never been there, and fun. It's a hands-on place. A lot of kids stuff. A lot of really interesting, strange things there. So next thing we're going to do is another poll. And I'm going to, if you can, on your phone or on a browser, just go to menti.com and enter this code 1969 space 7327, and you'll see our question that I will share. Where'd my controls go? There they are. Do a new share, and so that we can see it on the screen. So in your other browser or on your phone, you should see this question. Describe some common issues that can prevent product owners from helping their teams deliver value. That's what you should be looking at in that browser. And
can you send the link again? Or did you put it in the chat? There it is. Never mind.
It's right there at the top of the page.
Okay. Oh, I see it now. Okay, thanks.
But I can put it in chat. Thank you for reminding me that I had that capability.
Yeah, I put the code in there, but yeah, there you go.
Yeah. If you go straight to that link, it'll have the questions. So, and we'll see the answers as they pop up as you enter them. So we've got a lack of understanding of the role and responsibilities, unavailable subject matter experts, lack of clarity, no authority, team engagement, conflicting priorities. What, are you guys on my team or what? No, just, yeah, these are pretty common. Not understanding the product well enough, not being empowered, unclear acceptance criteria, lack of trust, too many priorities, unclear drivers, lack of support, lack of vision, too far removed from value, spread too thin. Yeah. So I think we've all felt those at some point in our lives. And if we haven't, we have worked with product owners who have felt that. And none of those places are great places to be. But a good place to be is the product owner triangle. And now we're going to get into talking about what that is. First, we're going to talk about what it isn't. So unlike the Bermuda Triangle from Leonard's TV show, the product owner triangle isn't a place where tragedy and mysterious circumstances befall hapless product owners and their teams. And it's not this diagram either that I'm sure we're all pretty familiar with. This is the dreaded iron triangle of triple constraints, where scope, schedules, and budgets are completely locked, and somebody somewhere is doing this to you, saying that none of the three of them are movable in any way, and you will meet them. The product owner triangle is actually a place where product owners can thrive and are able to use their skills and the Scrum framework to consistently and continually deliver value to their customers and to their stakeholders. So if you think I'm talking about a magic land of unicorns and rainbows, I'm not. Well, it is magical, but it's not a fantasy like unicorn land is. It's real, it's achievable, but it also takes work, and not just from you as a product owner or pointing to your product owner on your team. It's not just their responsibility. It requires team involvement, help from Scrum Masters and coaches, and support from your organization. As we saw in some of those results in that poll, we know that a lack of support from organizations can be a really crippling problem for product owners and their teams. So this is actually the product owner triangle. And unlike the iron triangle that we saw a couple of slides back, the product owner triangle unlocks successful product ownership through these three requirements that you see, hopefully that you can read. The top one says authority. I realize now that you might be seeing something pretty small on your screen. I've got a big giant 27-inch monitor over here and it looks great to me. So I apologize. So at the top, we have authority. And the bottom left, we've got knowledge. And then on the bottom right, we have time. So in the product owner triangle, these three things are the requirements of successful product ownership, meaning that a lack of any one of them could actually get you back in that shipwreck that we saw a few slides earlier, except it's your team and nobody wants to be there. But before we move on to talk about the triangle, let's take a look at what the Scrum Guide has to say about the accountability of a product owner. I'll give you a minute to read this before I continue. Hopefully you're already familiar with it and you could recite this to friends and family if they asked. If you didn't like them, I mean. I know when I start talking about this stuff with family, people just check out. So I don't talk about it. All right, as you're reading through this, I wonder if anything stands out for you in that description, especially as it relates to the requirements that we just talked about of authority, knowledge, and time.
Yeah, so the thing that sticks out to me is the entire organization must respect the decisions. This is way too command and control for me. Because the whole point of being a product owner is you have to take input from every area of the organization, not just your customers.
Sure.
So that to me is just makes me want to throw this thing out the window.
Well, let me ask you about the flip side of that, though. What happens when product owner decisions, let's say, go past the point of feedback and discussion and actually do the opposite of what this sentence says, where the decisions are not respected?
Yeah, that's different.
Yeah, definitely problematic. All right, so as I read through them, these things stand out for me. Accountable for maximizing the value of the product. The entire organization must respect their decisions, and with Mark's caveat. And one person, not a committee. And of course, the 4 bullet points of the explicit and defined accountabilities around backlog management. When I look at all these orange highlighted areas, I don't know how any of it can get done by a product owner that lacks authority, knowledge, or time to do the job. I mean, to me, it's spelled out right here, just in this one little passage of the Scrum Guide. So let's move on to the first requirement in the product owner triangle, and that's authority. Now, when we're talking about product owner authority, we're not talking about ultimate authority, right? The judge banging the gavel, sentencing people to jail or what have you. What we mean is that it's not necessary to have a product owner who's an executive sitting at the top of a product organization. In fact, if we have a product owner that is the very top of a product organization, it could be a serious anti-pattern that we're going to discuss later when we talk about time later in the presentation. We're actually talking about a product owner who has enough day-to-day authority over product decisions that every thought, idea, or decision doesn't have to be approved by someone higher in the chain of command. And I think that's what they mean in the Scrum Guide when they're talking about respecting, ultimately respecting the decisions of the product owner, so that when the product owner makes decisions, it doesn't have to look like an EKG, going up and down the chain of command before something can be delivered. Like, just like Goldilocks, we're looking for just right, which means just enough authority to keep the team executing against the product vision and the associated product goals. And one of the reasons for that is because we want to limit the number of decision makers that are part of a system. Because complexities, communication and dependencies enter the system, and with each additional decision maker. As you can see, theologian Thomas Priestley said it very wisely when he said the more elaborate our means of communication, the less we communicate. And this actually might even be even better than Priestley's quote. This cartoon really hits it on the head. Anyone ever been a part of an organization that talks like this about what they're going to do as they move forward? Meetings to prepare for meetings, or even better, especially now, having meetings to discuss how to have fewer meetings. That's always a fun one. Maybe, I think maybe we should form a tiger team to figure out how to handle this issue. What do you all think?
Can we have a meeting to discuss that?
Yes, and we'll have to have a follow-up depending on the outcomes and the outputs of that meeting. So in 1975, Fred Brooks very famously stated that adding manpower to a late software project makes it later. The any complex that's in brackets there is my addition, meaning it doesn't need to be a software project. Any complex project will suffer with the addition of new team members or new teams when we add those into the mix. And for those of you who were not prepared to do math tonight, don't worry about it. We're not going to make you do any math. The equation on the right-hand side of the page there is just a way to determine the number of lines of communication present as people are added to a project. So you can see it's lines of communication equals n times n minus 1 divided by 2. And this upcoming diagram visualizes that complexity as people are added. So you can see we go from one person, no lines of communication, although we do talk to ourselves. So maybe technically there's one there. All the way up to, in this diagram, you can see there's 8 people and 28 lines of communication that need to be managed with 8 people. And this example is just a single set of people, one team, right? That 8 people. Imagine that that's one team. So imagine what happens to the complexity here when other teams are added, and they're adding their own complex chains of communication, and how difficult things could get, and the dependencies that are created there. So what we looked at of the accountabilities of the product owner were from the 2020 Scrum Guide, which no longer dictates the size of a team. But in previous versions of the Scrum Guide, particularly the 2017 version, they stated that between 3 and 9 is the perfect size for a Scrum team. So if we had a 9-person team, using the equation from the previous page, we would have 36 lines of communication if we stayed within the boundaries that the Scrum Guide used to put forth. And again, that's just one team. Imagine taking things that the team is working on, sending them up to someone who then has lines of communication at their level, who then needs to send it up and has lines of communication at their level. Things can get amazingly difficult very, very quickly. They can also get very silly, truly very silly very quickly. And of course, no presentation is complete without a Dilbert reference. So here you go. I give it to you. Scott Adams perfectly describes another issue that happens with multiple chains of communication with his silly game of telephone there. For those of you who might be having trouble reading it, I'll read it to you. So in the first panel, I sent your question up the chain of command. Second panel, I talked to the district manager, who talked to his AVP, who talked to his VP, who talked to his SVP, who talked to the CEO. And the third panel says, the answer is that we need to shine the Braille toad. And Dilbert says, do you see any problem with our system? Not only does communication get more complex as we go up and down the chain of command, it can also become chaotic and wrong. The more layers, the more lines of communication, the more potential misrepresentations and misinterpretations. How many Braille toads have you and your teams shined over the years? I know that I've worked in some places where it seemed like that's what we got back when we sent something out into the ether, that type of silliness. But yet we were still expected to do our jobs. Now that leaves us with the obvious question. How do we get a product owner that has more authority, that can keep decision-making actions and activities within the team? One way is to remove or consolidate unnecessary layers of communication by adding command and control types. you know who they are. You know who you are if you're in the room. To stakeholder groups that are only brought in during reviews. Basically, the idea behind the bullet point here is limit exposure to the team. Try to find appropriate places that you can give these people a home, make them feel like they're part of the process, make them actually part of the process, and give them roles and responsibilities as part of being a stakeholder, which isn't coming in and sticking their finger in the batter every day to see if the cake's done yet. Another way we can do that is to move more quickly by working on smaller experiments that can show the product owner success to stakeholders, which actually might result in more autonomy, meaning the smaller and quote unquote less meaningful things that you do to the people above you that still deliver value, that can get them excited, and that you're allowed to do without asking permission first. The more you can do that and show successes there, the more that you're actually going to build up your autonomy and your authority and the team's ability to move forward at a faster clip. Another way is to educate the organization on the necessity for product owner empowerment and autonomy. Which means that if you're a product owner, you've got to enlist help. You've got to find a Scrum Master, you've got to find an Agile coach, you've got to find a middle manager or executive sponsor who can fight this battle with you. And in some cases, they'll be fighting it for you because they'll be in rooms that you're not in, and they'll be making these requests. So make it important to them, and they'll make it important to the people that need to know about it. It's a constant job. Even when you get authority as a product owner, you have to maintain it. And that happens in two ways. One is you're successful with that authority and that autonomy. And two is that you play whatever the political games are in your organization to get this message through. And then those political games actually have less and less stake in the decisions that you're making because this message is being spread throughout the organization. Also, use evidence-based techniques to show the cost of delay for every delayed decision or feedback that isn't acted upon. Yes, Mark, autonomy, mastery, and purpose, absolutely. This bullet point here is very important. One of the ways that product owners can prioritize work is by determining what the cost of delay is. Not only can you use that as a priority for work, you can use that as an argument as to why your communication systems within your organization are dysfunctional and they're getting in the way of your team's success. It's funny, I put evidence-based in there because you have to have some type of factual support for your arguments. But it's amazing how many people who constantly talk about how they are fact-based and they only make decisions on facts. It's amazing how much they hate facts when you actually give them facts, particularly around this matter here. When you tell them that what you're doing is costing us money, and we have to get past that. So in summing up this section, I would say this, that without authority, product owners and their teams are order takers at the mercy of someone else's schedule and someone else's priorities. And delays are actually the best case scenario that you're looking at. It can get much worse than that, especially when we think back to Scott Adams' Braille toads and how fruitful we think it would be to shine them. We don't actually want to do that. So that's the case for authority. And what I would like to do is open it up, not open it up now, but open up later for questions and answers. So if you have questions about this right now, write them down or save them, throw them in the chat, and somebody, Katie or Marie or Nancy, can pull them back up later when we get to that part. So right now, I would like to move to the next section, or the next corner of the triangle, and that's knowledge. This is my statistic, so take that for take that for as objective which it's not, of course. But I truly believe, and this is coming from being a product owner and coaching a number of product owners over the years, is that 100% of a product owner's job is to transfer a product vision to their teams. How they do that, of course, is completely up to them. There are a million ways that you can do that, and everybody's going to have their own skills. So I'm not really going to specify too much there, but we are going to talk about how important it is to get that vision into your teams. Let's quote here from James Cameron, where he's talking about luck not being a factor, hope is not a strategy, fear is not an option. So the only factor, the only strategy, the only option for a product owner is knowledge. And I hate to break it to you, but you're going to need to know a lot more than how to work in Jira. There's a lot more to knowledge for a product owner than that. And when I say knowledge, I don't mean that the product owner should be or needs to be a know-it-all. In fact, that also could lead to all sorts of other problems that we could discuss in another presentation about superstars on a team and the damage that they can potentially create. But we'll hold off on that. What I actually mean when I talk about product owner knowledge is the product owners need to have a mindset of being a perpetual student. Whatever they don't know, whatever they need to find a way to learn it and learn with some energy and some joy so that they can transfer that knowledge to their products and to their teams. That's getting back to that statistic earlier. 100% of your job as a product owner is to transfer a vision to your teams. And when we're talking about knowledge, we're talking about two different types of knowledge. They fall into two main categories: domain knowledge and market knowledge. And when we talk about domain knowledge, we mean the understanding of the product, its ins and outs, how it operates, what its benefits are, all of those things that you would need if you were a salesman or a marketing manager. Product owner needs to know all of those things too. Technology and tools. You have to know about the technology stack that your product sits on. You don't necessarily have to be able to be a Ruby on Rails expert if that's the stack for your product, but you certainly need to know the limitations of whatever that technology stack is. Otherwise, you're going to be just constantly suggesting things to your developers that and they're just going to shake their head like, man, I can't believe we're dealing with this. And then, of course, the tools that you use in support of that technology stack. And we're talking about organizational knowledge. So when we talked about authority, talked quite a bit about the organization. And so in trying to get that authority and trying to keep that authority, it requires knowledge of the organization. Who can say no to you? Why would they say no to you? So that you can create your cases, so that you can create your support for your ideas. You absolutely must know the ins and outs of your organization, just the same way that you know the ins and outs of your product. Now, when we talk about market knowledge, of course, we're talking about customers. What do they want? What do they need? How can you make them happy? What do they don't know that they need that you can set? Because that's what really makes it the happiest customer, right? Not that you deliver on their demands, but you delivered on something that they never thought of, but it just tickled them and delighted them, right? Getting back to making delighted customers. You need to know the demand for your product, and not just specifically from the customers that you may have, but what's the overall market demand? Is there a space in the market for the product that you're trying to create? Then, of course, you go into understanding your customers once you determine that demand. In usage, there's two parts of usage. It's how is your customer currently using the product, as well as how could the product be used in the future. Novel approaches, novel problem spaces, novel solutions that you haven't addressed that you could bring up through an understanding of the usage of your product. And then finally, for understanding the market conditions for your product, the life cycle stage of your product, where is it? Is it brand new at the beginning of its life cycle and there's nothing but up, and there's just an untapped market that you can just rely on for years and years? Is it, a middle of the road life cycle where the product has started to plateau, and you either, you have to make one of two decisions. You just have to start planning to sunset it, or you really have to figure out how to get it off that plateau and get it going back up again. Or is it, of course, at the end of its life cycle and ready to be put to bed and move on to another product? If you don't know that, you're just constantly all you're going to be doing is pumping features into a product, and you're not going to have any context around why you're putting those features in. So, just like before, how does a product owner get more knowledge? And one is to become a student of your product, your customers, and those who can help you make your product vision. We've already talked about this, but that little girl with her big spectacles and that perpetual student thing, it is of absolute importance that you become curious as a product owner. We can get caught up as product owners of what's the next thing to work on? What am I pulling out of the backlog? What am I putting into the backlog? None of that requires curiosity, right? That's just moving things from column to column. Is it done? Okay, I'm going to move it to the next column, whatever. But it does require curiosity about what your product is doing, who is doing what with your product. It's only getting that knowledge that's actually going to allow you to put that curiosity into the work that you do as a product owner. And again, how you do that is completely up to you. Now we're going to have another poll. And let me set it up here on my side, because every time I turn the poll on, it goes to full screen and I have to shrink it down, and it's a big pain. But I can share that, and I'll copy the link and put that in chat. So as we're talking about gaining knowledge, what are some ways that a product owner can gain domain and market knowledge? I guess that should probably have a question mark at the end there, huh? Bit of a typo, sorry. Just start, yeah, there you go. Ask questions. Talk to current customers.
We can't see the
Oh, you can't, because I shared the wrong screen.
I just wanted to make sure you knew, because it was pretty cool and I liked what you were doing last time.
Oh. Which screen? Oh, there it is. I told you I've got a lot. So now you should be able to see it. Oh, there's a tool suggestion using Pendo. Review metrics, focus groups, talk to people who didn't buy your product. Gemba, walk the floor, if you don't know what that is. That's what that means. Walk the floor, get out there, talk to the teams, talk to the people, talk to users. Communities of practice, documentation, conventions, competitive analysis, user interviews, working with leaders on OKRs, asking questions again. Work with the architects, there you go. Oh, I loved that. Where did that go? That disappeared. Respond to the curiosity of others. That was fantastic. Whoever wrote that. Right, that's often one key element of curiosity that's missing. Everybody thinks that curiosity begins here. Sometimes curiosity can be somebody else. Take interest in what somebody else is interested in, and that can take you to very unexpected places. Yeah, so a lot of good stuff here. I'm going to get back to the presentation again and make sure I get the right screen. Yes. All right. So thank you for your input there. I appreciate it. And summing up the knowledge point, without knowledge, a product owner risks making poor decisions and costly mistakes. I think we all know that. That could easily result in them losing whatever authority they may have had, right? This is also part of it. How successful you are as a product owner usually determines how much authority you have. And you can't be successful as a product owner without that knowledge. I will move on to the final leg of the conversation here, and that is time. Unlike this guy working on this really big clock, we don't have the ability to fix time. And even this clock repairman here only has 24 hours in any given day, just like the rest of us. We all know the obvious statement that time is a very precious commodity. In fact, it's just about the only one that is not refillable. Once it's gone, it is gone, and there is no substitute. There is no clean energy version of time. And time can be a very effective motivator, but we're not talking about deadlines that the maestro is referring to here. We're actually talking about availability. Although if you're a procrastinator like I am, you definitely know that some of your best work has happened under the tightest deadlines that you've ever had. But don't roll that dice every time. That could be trouble for you. Your luck's going to run out one day. And outside of the world of quantum physics, availability means that product owners cannot be in two places at one time. We don't know about Schrodinger's cat until we open the box, but we do know that in our physical reality, if I'm here, I can't be in a meeting over there. I mean, that's just obvious, and we know that. So like knowledge before, there are two types of availability that I want to talk about here today. And one is externally focused availability and the other is internally focused. How is a product owner spending their time? And there are two ways. You're either looking outside of the team or you're looking into the team. And we're talking about external focus. We're talking about customer research, we're talking about market research, we're talking about our stakeholders, all of the things that inform what goes into the product that allows that sentence that Mark brought up earlier about must respect the decisions of the product owner. When a product owner is externally focused and is very concerned about the needs of the customer, the needs of the market, the needs of stakeholders, they tend to get that respect. They tend to. Of course, every organization is different. It depends on how command and control, how tightly they live in that space. But even when they let up on the reins a little bit, that authority really starts to come around if you focus on those three things externally. As well as larger product teams. Again, we're talking about understanding the role in the organization. Most large organizations, as a product owner, you're not going to be just with your team. There's a larger product team that you're going to be a part of. So you need to know what's going on there because that's going to inform your product as well. What happened? Okay, there we go. And when we're talking about internally focused, we're talking about focusing on your product team. And how do you do that? You do that in refinements, you do that in planning, you do that in reviews, you do that in retros, you do that by answering day-to-day questions. These are just the things outside of day-to-day questions, but refinement, planning, reviews, and retros, these are just the things that Scrum suggests that the product owner should be involved in. When we're talking about day-to-day questions, we could be talking about a daily Scrum. If you want to be there as a product owner, you have a right to. You are a team member. Just don't take it over. Listen much more than you talk if you show up at the daily Scrum. But just be there. If your team, your development team is working on something and a question pops up and you don't have the time to answer that question, what's going to happen with that question? They're either going to make an incorrect assumption or they're going to leave it alone. So they're either going to potentially make something wrong or they're potentially not going to do any work. Neither of those, of course, is a scenario that we would like to be involved with. And our final question, how does a product owner get more time? First thing is to make the product owner a dedicated role. There are no half or thirds or quarters or even smaller measures that we can take. When we're talking about scaling, we can give a product owner multiple teams if they're associated and they have something to do with each other, but we can't spread the product owner out across the organization and expect them to be able to give what they need to be able to give to their product team or teams if they have multiples. Next thing is ruthless prioritization. This is a term I love to use with product owners when we're talking about backlog items, but we're talking about more than just ruthlessly prioritizing backlog items here. We're talking about meetings and other activities that interfere with schedules and the ability to deliver on a sprint goal. You have to learn how to say no in multiple ways. That's one of the biggest skills that a product owner can learn. Not only about, hey, I'd like the product to do this, figuring out a way to say no to that, and hey, I'd really like you in this meeting. And as you're probably well aware, a product owner gets hit with those from every angle, every day of the week. And it only gets worse as organizations get bigger. So I'm going to paraphrase, the work of Brene Brown here when she talks about boundaries. Boundaries are a way to create clarity. Boundaries are clear, and clear is kind. Determine what your boundaries are, figure out how to say no, and that is the best way that you can help yourself ruthlessly prioritize your schedule. And if enough time can't be found, give the job to someone who has availability. Just be sure to also give them the authority that's necessary to do the job. A lot of product owners in name only out there because that executive that we talked about earlier in the authority section wants to be product owner because they think it's a great thing. I need to be in charge of this product. And they find out almost immediately that they don't have time to meet the demands of what that accountability actually is. So, for those of you who aren't product owners in the room, you may have to have conversations with that unavailable product owner to be very frank with them and say, is there someone closer to this team that can make these same decisions, who has more time than you? Someone that you trust, someone that you believe is going to make the right decisions so that you don't have to constantly be checking over their shoulder. And then for you product owners who are out there in as product owners in name only, you're going to have to rely on the arguments that we made back in the authority section to try to figure out how to build your authority and your localized decision-making capabilities so that they don't have to do that up and down thing that's going to delay your project and give you a whole bunch of braille toads that need to be shied. So to sum up this section, without time, product owners will not be able to respond to the needs of their teams, customers, and market conditions. Every decision made without a product owner presents compounded risk. I don't even know what I was thinking when I wrote that. I must have been, because that's not even a real sentence.
Oh, it is.
Every decision.
Product owners present. Oh yeah, product
Yeah.
owner must be present
Yeah.
or compounds risks.
Yeah.
I can't talk either.
Every decision made without a product owner present compounds risk. Thank you, Mark, for clarifying my own thoughts. And I apologize for stumbling over them. It's been a long day. So yeah, if you're a product owner who can't be there, you're creating problems for your team. If you are on a team with a product owner that isn't there, you know the problems that they're creating for you, and you've got to find a way to make them available. So in summing up the whole presentation here, unlike the mysterious cousin of the Bermuda Triangle, the product owner triangle is actually a place where good things happen. I was going to get really fancy and really write something, something thought-provoking or, insightful or whatever. I really settled on it's a place where good things happen, because that's absolutely true. When authority, knowledge, and time are available, they will conspire to make good product owners and to make good products, because good products absolutely require good product owners. In my opinion, even though I left the world of product ownership a few years back, it's the hardest job on the team because of all of these demands, because everybody is always pulling at your shirt multiple times a day. There's just so much to juggle. And it's only through staking a claim of authority, building your knowledge, and carving out the time and availability that those three things make the job so much easier. And that, my friends, is the product owner triangle.
Awesome.
No.
And I think that was simple. It's simply said, but it's sometimes that's the best, right? Just say it simply.
Yeah. A
okay,
few people. Yeah, I see a few hands up. I think I saw Srina Gesh.
Yeah.
I saw your hand come up first.
Yeah. Can I ask question now, Teddy?
Please do.
Oh, it's awesome. Awesome presentation, Teddy. I am
very
Sri Nagesh, calling from Hyderabad, India, northern hemisphere of this planet Earth. I got up early morning, very early in the morning for your awesome presentation. It is truly worth spending time with you. Amazing, amazing presentation.
Thank you very much.
So my question is that currently we are working on a banking product development, including this Agile, Scrum, Kanban, and safe kind of implementation. So our couple of the product owners is like initial understanding, like whatever we work, end of the day, we wanted to showcase to the product owner. End of the day, this is what we have done. This is the demo. This is the screen we have done. That was the initial understanding, Teddy. But over the period of time, the product owner is busy, not available, may not be truly content authority, may not be truly answering all the questions. Some questions are very tricky, very complex. He is not able to decide on himself. He has to go back to the business owners or product management team. So there is a delay. The delay is causing us a trouble. So our team is not in a mode to escalate because the product owner is from the client side. Whenever the product owner is from the client side, normally we don't tend to any complaining or escalation. Normally we don't do, right? So in such a situation, if product owner is not truly available, is not truly content authority, is not having truly domain knowledge, and still we have to work on with the team, very complex product development. Maybe kindly with your experience, you can share your thoughts on this. How do we resolve this issue? Teddy?
Well, yeah. Firstly, I'm sorry that you're in that position because that sounds terrible. That sounds very challenging. My first thought on that is to figure out how to solve the product owner's problems, right? Because the team needs to be able to have, needs to be able to get to the product owner to show the results of their work. And, by doing that, you're obviously going to be contributing to the knowledge of that product owner. But I would, whether it's a team conversation, or whether there's a scrum master or a coach or a line manager somewhere who can have the conversation of, how do we get more of your time? How can we spend more time with you so that you can then take this information to your stakeholders? And it sounded like you had a great plan originally of, at the end of the day, get together and show the product owner, because one of my big things as a coach, one of my big phrases is never surprise the product owner, meaning don't wait until the review to expect the product owner to look at your product. Find a way to put your work in front of them long before the review. The reviews can be incremental and iterative as well. We just have a big party, or at the end of a time box. So I would work with that product owner and one, describe the challenges that the team is having. Because you're unavailable, it means this to us. Because you don't have the authority to make these decisions, it means this to us. How can we figure out a way to give you that authority, to give you that availability? And it's going to have to be something that is a team-based solution, because it doesn't seem like the product owner that you're describing has the ability to carve that out all by themselves. So enlisting help is, I think, the number one course of action in your scenario there.
Sure, Teddy. Thanks for the input. That helps.
Sure. Thanks for the question. I see that Darrell has raised a hand. Yeah.
Yes. Little bit of a weird question, maybe. Can you sell me on wanting to be a product owner?
Can I sell you? Okay.
Yeah. So what's great about it? How do I know when I've succeeded? Why should I want to be one?
Boy, that is a loaded question. My goodness. Well, if you want all the responsibility without any of the authority, become a product owner.
This is why I'm having trouble getting people to be them.
Yeah. Honestly, the best way to sell somebody on being a product owner, because it's not going to be very long before you start talking about what a product owner does to anyone, that they're going to be able to pick out the potential, the huge minefield that can be product ownership. Any sentient being is going to be like, oh, wait, you really want me to be on the hook for all of this stuff, and yet I don't have the ability to change this or this or this or this. The best way to sell that is to start working on an environment where that doesn't exist. And that might seem like a circular argument, but the only way you're going to get somebody to sign up for it is if it is something that they want to sign up for. And if your organization exists, creates the circumstances that everybody literally runs in the opposite direction anytime somebody even discusses becoming a product owner, that should tell you something about the organizational issues that need to be handled before you can give somebody that role and expect them to be successful. The alternative, not an alternative, but let's say a parallel track needs to occur there. So as we're working on these problems and these difficulties of product ownership in your organization, we need to set up a scenario where product owners aren't expected to be perfect, to understand that the issues that we're talking about within the organization are going to, from time to time, be handicaps for product owners and their teams. and state that from the very beginning. And it's like, okay, well, we've just given Debbie the role of product owner here in this organization. And you all need to know that she's not going to be totally successful in her job because of this bulleted list here that I just put together, that are the hurdles that every product owner in this organization has to go over before they can even make a decision, before they can even decide on what work to be done. This is all the other stuff that has to happen. And again, the enlisting a Scrum Master or multiple Scrum Masters and any coaches that might be available, or other middle management types, other line managers who can help smooth that road and make it easier to travel, the more you're going to be able to convince people to take on the very challenging job of product ownership. Now, on the flip side of that, there's a lot to sell about when things go well. Product owners get a kick out of being in the room and seeing somebody use their product the way that the team and they and their product organization thought they were going to see, and then they see that person not only do it that way, but say how great it is to do it that way. That is an amazing room to be in when that happens. And that can happen even with all those challenges, but that happens a lot more frequently when those challenges are removed.
Okay.
So under any circumstances, it's not a job for the faint of heart. Even perfect circumstances, it requires somebody, like the old traveling salesman, bit. They need to be able to be happy with people slamming doors in their face, because it's going to be part of the job. You're going to put stuff out there that isn't going to work. It's not going to be well received. It's going to happen. But when the things hit the field and they hit on all cylinders, there's not really much of a better feeling in all of product development than being able to be the person to say that you're the person who crafted the vision behind that. I mean, that's pretty awesome.
Great. Thanks. That was super helpful.
Mm-hmm. Got any other questions, comments, quandaries, or conundrums?
I was going to say, I mean, this is so helpful. Even if you're not a product owner, like in my position, you're a Scrum Master, because Scrum Masters or coaches having to needing to understand the role of a product owner like that, and helping to educate them around their accountabilities and where they should be focusing their time. I think that's super important, because that's part of our job, right, is to help them and support them. And so for us, understanding what makes them successful is really important.
Yeah, I feel very fortunate as a coach to have had 10 plus years of working in a product owner role, to be able to bring that to my coaching. I don't tell people what to do, but I certainly can empathize with the challenges that they have and work with them to find their own solution on how to get past those challenges. Feel very fortunate. So I just shared the screen here again. There are a billion places to go for product owner and product management information on how to be the best that you can be. I threw up some of my favorites here. I've read every one of these books, and they're all absolutely amazing. And some of the names that are in the column on the left are the authors of some of those books. But look for these names when you're trying to figure out how to build your skills as a product owner. Marty Kagan and Jeff Gotthealth I put at the top of the list, because I think that along with actually John Cutler, who's closer to the bottom, are doing some of the most groundbreaking work in understanding what it means to be truly successful in a product management role. And the advice that they have is nothing short of game changing for you if you haven't been exposed to their thought leadership yet. And that is truly the last slide in the presentation.
What other questions for Teddy or comments? Anything to share? That was great job.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I appreciate it. And I
Very
appreciate.
important.
Thank you, Teddy.
Very important to see the other side, the other side of the team.
Absolutely. I mean, we've got an epidemic of frustrated product owners and teams that are frustrated at their product owners. And almost all of that frustration comes from one of those points of the triangle being missing in the job. And that's why I really focused, because I mean, we could talk forever about the skills that are necessary to do the job. And those are going to be as individual as every individual who has that role. But the aspects of authority, knowledge, and time don't change at all. They are constants, no matter the organization, no matter the person carrying out the duties. That's why I wanted to focus on them. That's
great. Thank you so much. All right. I'm gonna into chat right now. Just a reminder again, the SCUs for this meetup. So click on that link and you should automatically, they should automatically apply to your Scrum Alliance account. And yeah, and thanks for joining us tonight. It was great to have so many folks with us. So
great.
Any last
Thanks
words,
a lot.
Katie? Oh, yep. Oh, Linda.
Thank you so much, Teddy.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, thank you all very much for being here. I appreciate you being here, and I appreciate the questions and contributions that you made throughout. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I want to share this with my product owners. So are you going to post the video somewhere, the recording?
Yeah, so you can go to YouTube and you can look for the Agile Denver YouTube channel, and they post from all the SIG groups. It's really great. This is an excellent resource because, you know, you may not be able to make it up to all of them, but they're always there on demand.
Cool, thank you.
Teddy will be there on demand. You can listen to him 100 times over.
I think this is the first time I've been on demand. That's very exciting.
You can
very
fast forward him and rewind him and pause him at all the right moments when he makes, you know, make funny faces.
Yes, yes. I remember when we first got a VCR way back in the day, how much fun it was to freeze frame things at either the silliest or the most inappropriate places. It made my early teen years just endlessly enjoyable.
You can take little screenshots and put a little bubble and say, Teddy says, with Teddy's face.
The source of memes today.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, I love it. That's great.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all. Have a great evening.
Bye.
See you next time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.